I'm Dr. Not Gonna Do It, the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson of Dr. Howie Do It, the extraordinary man of science who lived in the later part of the 20th century. The year is now 2997, and I'm trying to learn something about the culture of that earlier time by looking at some artifacts which we have recently uncovered. We think that most of these things were in use 1,000 years ago, around the year 1997. By studying these artifacts, we have pieced together some educated guesses about how these people lived in the late 20th century. But our job can sometimes be difficult when we see these isolated objects outside of the context in which they were used. This footwear is particularly unusual. We have determined that the strange hieroglyphics symbolize different tribes that competed with each other for survival. Apparently, each tribe had its own distinctive mark. Young people of the time demonstrated their tribal loyalty by the particular mark on their footwear. But these strange round devices are another story entirely. At first, we thought they were a form of money. Then, we guessed that perhaps this primitive society used these as mirrors to look at themselves all the time. But both of these guesses were wrong. We learned the horrible truth when we discovered one of these. We discovered that these round things were actually used inside this primitive torture device, which must have been reserved for criminals and captured enemies. They would then place this apparatus on the heads of their enemies and operate the device. We cannot understand how these primitive tribes could have been so cruel. We recently uncovered this late 20th century piece in virtually perfect condition. This is where the families of the period actually lived. We know that these are dwellings because, as you can see, the occupants had their meals inside and used these primitive containers to hold their beverages. They also had a primitive climate control system, and the family could even sleep comfortably inside at night. Refreshing. But what we cannot understand is why these primitive dwellings had wheels. Because, as you can see from this early magnetic recording, these dwellings were apparently part of villages that stayed in one place all the time. So, who knows why their houses had wheels? And now, let us go to a truly sacred site of these primitive peoples, the temples where they worshipped. We have found enough artifacts to reconstruct this site almost exactly as it must have been over 1,000 years ago. This appears to be the inner temple of these ancient people, where they performed the daily ritual of worshipping this glowing object here. This religious icon must have been very important in the lives of these people, because we have determined that each family built a temple like this one, where they spent hours at a time reverently honoring this oracle, handsome fellow, before returning to their homes. So, as you can see, the artifacts of a society can tell us a great deal about the lifestyles and beliefs of primitive peoples. Well, that's the shoe for today. Did you keep your artifacts straight? I hope you could see the point I was making, or at least get the anthropology gist of it. I'm Dr. Howie Do It, and that's how we do it.